Miskiff taking an epic court fail as Asmongold gets a giant W. We're going into it today on The Legal Mindset, where we teach you to be your own judge. Of course, I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney.
How about that?
Now, this is something I've been following for a while because this is a fascinating case involving many streamers, their corporations, and really it has ramifications for defamation and also a certain type of claim out there. And we're already setting some precedent here in what's been going down. So I'm going to get into today the nitty-gritty of exactly what went down in the latest filing in the Miskiff case. So anytime you see the language that says plaintiff, just put Miskiff's name in there. He's the guy who has brought this claim against the plethora of people that he thinks have wronged him. Now, of course, amongst those, of course, the prime defendant here is Emaru, who is not off the hook. But even with Emaru, her chances of winning seem to be going up based on the latest filing and what happened. And of course, we have the Roach King over here in his glorious rainbow shirt. He was a defendant in this case, but now things have changed in his favor. So what exactly happened? What exactly went down? Well, first we need to get into this law called the Ending Forced Arbitration of Assault and Harassment.
This was so fucking retarded.
Act, right? So it is a specific act involving a specific type of, once again, legally, right? We're talking about legal definitions here of SA or SH. And this was meant to keep people who signed pre-dispute arbitration agreements from being forced into silence. This is meant to keep victims from being essentially bullied by these agreements, which they may have signed without really thinking about it, or maybe even under duress, or saying, hey, you're not going to get this job or position, or we're not going to enter into this agreement with you unless you sign this. So essentially, this is to stop victims from being bullied and forced into these secretive agreements that might go down during an arbitration, because arbitration has its benefits. But one of the things is it isn't as transparent. People don't get to see what goes on in that arbitration. So that's one of the key things here. And in this case,
and keep in mind, this law is meant to protect victims. To protect people that are victims of bad behavior and, harassment and stuff like that. This is for victims.
Have to focus on, and the judge specifically focuses on the fact that this was meant to keep victims, underline that, victims from being forced into secretive arbitration. So what went down in this latest ruling from the judge in this case? Well, let's look at the exact text here, and this is fascinating. So they go on to say, the judge says, plaintiff, that's Miskiff, claims that the word involving in an SA dispute definition is so broad as to make the EFAA's treatment of SH and SA entirely different. So he's trying to break those things out for his own benefit to make his case. However, both definitions contain broad language involving, related to, but neither sweeps so broadly as to mean the person alleging conduct constituting an SH dispute or SA dispute.
That's right.
I.e., the person who may elect to avoid arbitration is in fact the person accused of or denying either SA or SH. Now, this is huge. What this is saying is that the perpetrator, right, the person
he was the one that was accused of this bad behavior, and he's trying to use a law that protects victims of the bad behavior. That's the precedent that he was trying to use. It's crazy.
Accused of perpetrating, the person who is not the victim here, but the person who is alleged, right? There's an allegation here out there that person can use it to their benefit. The law was constructed to help the victim, not the perpetrator, but the construction that Miskiff wants. He wants this arbitration prevention to work for him as a person who was, once again, allegedly by Emaru in her quote-unquote emotional truth, the perpetrator. And the judge did not buy that at all whatsoever. In fact, they go out to say that we're going to reject that argument and take up the recommendation of the magistrate judge, Susan.
What a fucking surprise that using a law that's meant to protect victims when you're the one who was being accused didn't work. What a fucking weasel. What a little rat.
Hightower, who gave her recommendations earlier this month. So if you look into this, it says that they adopt the recommendations. So it's ordered that OTK, Mythic, King, their motion to compel arbitration is granted. So they win. So Mythic, OTK, and King, they're getting what they want, which is arbitration. So they're taking a win there. Next, it says litigation of counts 1 and 3 of their complaint is stayed.
Man.
So that's the counts that related to OTK, Mythic, King. So those are stayed pending the arbitration. So now it's got to go to arbitration as to OTK, Mythic, and King. Because once again, Miskiff can't use this to get out of arbitration. It also says, and here's the catch, that defendant Shunk, that's Emaru's motion to dismiss, is denied. So Emaru does take an L here, and Miskiff does get a tiny W, but there's a but, and you've always got to read the but. But plaintiff Miss Riendo, that's Miskiff, shall submit a more definite statement on or before August 10th. So we're going to have, in just a week or two, or 2 weeks, Raul, at this point, we're going to have him coming forward with this, identifying each statement that Emaru said which alleges to be defamatory. So he's going to have to go and pick out every single specific statement, including exact quotes from her live stream. So before, Miskiff was being vague, saying that, oh, I've been defamed, etc., but he wasn't saying this exactly is the thing. And the judge is agreeing with what we actually said previously on this stream, what others have said, what Asmon said as well, which is, what exactly did these people say, Asmon, Emaru, etc., what did they say that is defamatory? Now, Asmon, as we're going to see, is out of this, but even as to Emaru, the judge needs more than what Miskiff has given so far. Then
That's right. Vindicated, let's go. I know.
He's got to say, how is it untrue?
Too bad, right?
Because if a statement is true, then, well, it can't be defamatory.
That's correct.
And the last part is how it harms him. So even if he's able to say, okay, here's a quote, this is not true, but if it has no harm, then it's not going to be something that's going to be actionable, right? So now he's got to jump through all of these hurdles, even with Emaru. So while he gets that W, he's got to put in work, him and his lawyers, to go through with each statement and say exactly how that harms him. That's going to be a little bit of a challenge for him, and let's see how his lawyers and him come up with that response. The other thing here is that Asmon gets the win. It's finally ordered that defendant Hoyt's amended motion to dismiss count is granted. So, boom, Asmon gets the W. However, it's dismissed without prejudice, and that's signed July 10th by Robert Pittman, U.S. District Judge. So just...
Oh, jeez, guys. Oh, man. It looks like suing somebody after that person comes out and says that there are other people that want to accuse you of something, and I'd be willing to fund their legal bills so they'd be able to do it with a degree of security. It turns out that suing a person so they can't do that, oh man, maybe it didn't work out too well. That's too bad. How about that?
In case you guys don't know, and this is very important for you guys to understand with any legal case, there's with prejudice and without prejudice. In the legal context, without prejudice really means without loss or waiver or any right or privileges. So in this case, that means that it is possible, theoretically, hypothetically, it is possible that Miskiff could refile later against Asmongold. So while Asmongold's
case can lose twice
is dismissed, it is possible if there were some new facts or something else came out or there was some discovery.
Also, by the way, like the fact that you getting the shit dismissed is it didn't even get past the first stage
that came out. It is possible that he could come back and try to swing against Asmon again. Now, I don't think that's a wise choice. I don't think that's going to be a winning strategy, but of course, we don't know yet. There may be more discovery where he'll try to find a fact and come against Asmon again.
Sure.
So let's turn over to my judgment here. So in judgment, Asmongold has been completely cleared at this point, right? Until we get, until and unless there's more secret facts out there, there's something we don't know. Asmongold's off the hook. OTK, Mythic King, they get a W with compelling arbitration. And then Miskiff now needs to specifically go through, do the work with his lawyers, and explain how each statement was defamatory, how it was false, and how it harms him. That's going to be a significant hurdle for Miskiff. And then Miskiff still has a chance. So I don't want to say at this point, once again, you never know with cases. They can take wild and crazy turns. So I want to be conservative here in my assessment, saying, yes, it is possible that Miskiff could find some facts and come against Asmongold again. It's possible he could prevail against Emaru. But at this point, his window for victory...
It's not what I would bet on. So far, it's not what I would bet on.
Victory is narrowing. It's becoming harder and harder for Miskiff. And this is the point at which I would say to Miskiff, are you really committed to taking this all the way, or would a settlement really make you happy, bro? Would you be okay with some form of settlement, maybe an Emaru apology saying, hey, I framed this in a bad way.
It's not going to happen.
Shouldn't have said this way. Maybe I should have framed this in a different way, right? Maybe it shouldn't have been my emotional truth. Maybe I should have framed this in a more objective and neutral way. Maybe something like that, a settlement, maybe a payment. Who knows? Is that an option that might be better for you or better for all parties? I would say, look, Miskiff, your window is closing. Asmongold has already gotten that W over you. How far are you willing to take this? But I want to know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will catch you on the next one.
How's it narrowing if the judge approved it to the next step? Isn't that the opposite? It's because he basically didn't define it correctly, and the judge wants to have a more definitive, like, that's part of Emmy's case and not mine. So, like, I'm not going to really make a lot of comments on that. I'm only really going to talk about, like, my situation. And my situation was actually really, really simple. And to the extent that anything else comes out, I think that it will only further entrench this problem. Like, there's a lot of things, like, right now, again, out of respect for other people's privacy, there are a lot of things that are not public, but when they are made public, I think they'll be very revealing. I think they will be, just like the other things have been revealing. Like, for example, the Discord DMs were revealing. Things like, for example, like some of the stuff in the other court filings were also revealing. And so there's been a whole lot of this. And that's really about it. And so checking the claims now, since it'll be worse if the judge caught the silence attempt. Yeah, tried and failed. Exactly. So let me look at here. Wrath of the Roach King. The thumbnail goes hard. Exactly, right? And yeah, there it is here. Second legal video, can't use the word sexual harassment and sexual assault. That's for YouTube, right? That's the reason why. And step one, do fucked up shit. Step two, attempt to punish anyone who mentions it. Yeah, and it's not going to work out, and it already hasn't. I think that's very clearly what's happened. So the judge wants clear evidence. I think that in order to file a lawsuit, you have to have a very definitive and a defined mode of, like, problematic behavior, right? And so you can't just go off of a vibe. You have to, like, whenever you're talking about something like defamation, for example, you have to have a bunch of different standards to meet. Like, the actual, like, because again, not getting the case dismissed is like a super, super early, like, that's like, if you get the case dismissed, it's like, it's basically just bullshit, right? So there are multiple other levels that a case has to go through in order to reach a trial, and then actually then winning the trial is another one. So it's like, kind of, you have a lot more to go through than just like one specific thing. There's a long, it's a very, very long process, and something not getting thrown out immediately is like not really that big of a deal. What do you think will happen in the Emaru case? I'm not gonna, out of respect for her and everything, and I'm not gonna make comments on that. So yeah, that's it. And does Miz have to pay her lawyer fees or nope? No, he doesn't. Well, he might be able to or might have to, but at the current point in time, according to like my legal counsel, they said that I was not going to be able to recoup the fees, and so I'm going to have to pay those myself. And so that's really about it. I mean, like, and to me, like, it's not something that he has to. I don't know about that. And do not say. The judge will sentence to the same Power World server. Yeah, I guess so. You might get reimbursement in 5 or 10 years. I have no idea if I will. I'm not expecting to, and I don't regret anything that I did. I think that I acted and I did the right thing at the right time. And this might be something that people would be confused about because it's not something that you'd expect to hear from me. But I do genuinely try to do the right thing. I do. Like in a lot of cases, I try to actually do the right thing, even if it's something that is unpopular, even if it's something that is not, beneficial to me. And, just for, total transparency's sake, the case cost me I think it was over $100,000. I still need to pay, I think, 1 or 2 of the bills. So because there was a finalization of it very recently. So I do that with no reservation. I don't even think about it, right? That's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of money. Like that's the way it is. But the reality is that is the price of doing business. I obviously have a big channel and I talk about a lot of current events and this is just what happens. And so I don't really look at it as like a horrible thing that happened to me or anything like that. I think to myself how lucky I am, the fact that I'm able to pay for something like that, and it's no big deal. And I think also like it just doesn't really matter at all about any of this. Like, at the end of the day, I am going to always do what I think the right thing to do is. And whether that is something that's not beneficial to somebody else or whatever, it doesn't really matter. What really matters is doing what I think is the right thing to do. Does that make sense? Does Miz have to pay the same amount in fees? I think he's probably making... He's probably spending more than that because there's like multiple cases that he's fighting, right? Is money well spent? Yeah, and so I have no, and there's no reason to, for me, to act like a victim of any of this or anything like that. I have no issue and no problem at all with any of this. And that's just the way it is.